sponsors who helped make everything possible. And they include Bear Paw Lacrosse events, Apex Lacrosse events, Sticks and Picks podcast, Major Series Lacrosse, Uncommon Fit, the PAR team, and Manitoba Lacrosse, all contributing to making this summit happen. We've had a couple of great days of guests, and that will continue tonight with Dylan Ward talking about translation of goaltending from field to box, and a man who's seen Dylan Ward play plenty, Brian Shanahan, is joining me. And I'm not going to introduce you a whole lot because I know in your presentation you've got your background. So I'm just going to say, Shanny, welcome and thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks very much, Stamper. It's good to be here. I'm just hanging out in front of Mimico Arena here.
It looks good. I'm surprised there are that many people there with all the cars parked.
The cars are waiting for lacrosse to come back sometime.
Right? They're just going to sit there
in their cars, yeah. Socially
who
distancing
knows when.
themselves, waiting.
Oh my goodness, we've had so much going on. I mean, things being canceled, obviously, and that's one of the reasons that this summit was created, was to give people a chance to talk some lacrosse, enjoy some lacrosse, and learn and take advantage of the time that we all have available. So, Shanny, we're going to talk about building a center, and Mimico. You're going to go through a bit of the history of Mimico, but it's I know near and dear to your heart.
Oh yeah, it sure is, and I'll put a slideshow on in a second, but you know, Mimico has been in existence since 1890, so it's got quite a history there. That I guess this would have been the 130th year, and you know, so that always gives you a good start when you're building culture and building a legacy, to have an organization that's been around for that long. But I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think you can do the same with, you know, newer organizations, and we've seen that. Do you want me to start the slideshow, Stamper?
Yeah, let's get it rolling.
Okay, I'm going to do the old share. Let's see. I didn't know any of this stuff a couple months ago, so now.
Right. I don't think any of us did. Did anybody even know that Zoom existed?
Yeah, I guess we're all getting educated in the last little while. Let me see, where am I? Do you see my screen now, Stamper?
Yeah, I do. I see your Zoom page.
Okay, I'm bringing up this, and
there it is.
I will, let me see. Let me move this out of the way, and I'll present. And stop me along the way if you want me to talk a little bit more about anything. But
right, I should have mentioned everyone who's watching. Thanks for joining us. And the chat function should be disabled, but you can go to the Q&A. We just want to keep everyone in one place so we don't miss anything. So if you have any questions or comments, go to the Q&A. Go ahead and share them there. I'll keep track of that and interject the questions into Shanny's presentation. I know you welcome questions. We talked about it getting ready. Anything anyone wants to know?
So, creating a culture in Mimico. Obviously, this picture is even a little bit before my time, but we mentioned 1890. I couldn't tell you exactly when this picture is from, but I do recognize the Dixon brothers. This guy here on the left, Kenny Dixon, he scored about 700 goals in major lacrosse or senior lacrosse history, and I think this is his brother Archie, I believe it, over here. And it's funny because you know I wrote an article on Bobby Allen a few weeks ago, and Bobby Allen told me one of the highlights for him was when he was in Mimico for an old timers game, and an old fella in the corner said, "Hey Bobby, come over here," and he says it was Kenny Dixon. And Bobby Allen actually told me that he modeled his game after Kenny Dixon. And Kenny Dixon, you know, one of the interesting things about him is he was drafted or invited to play for the Leafs. He won the Mann Cup in 1942, and that whole 1942 team joined Conn Smythe's regiment in World War II. So he couldn't go to the Leaf camp, and by the time he came back from the war, it was too late. So he forego. It's just a little something on the history of this picture. So I'm going to guess this team is somewhere in the 30s or 40s. And this is me. Broadcasted a little bit of my experience broadcasting, writing for Inside Lacrosse, and you know all this stuff, Stamper, and our buddy Andy McNamara there.
Yeah, Andy's been doing play-by-play for The Rock for many years, and I went in and did color for a while, and then Shanny came in and has been doing color for the last. We've been doing color there 4 years now, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, although you know, for the NLL, I've been
before
doing
that.
color, yeah, this was my 21st
Hmm.
year in some capacity doing color commentary for either the Toronto Rock or the NLL.
Yeah, and you've been doing, I know, for Inside Lacrosse, you write the NLL Power Rankings, and
Yeah, I
we're
was actually
yeah.
surprised. It's been 15 years since I've been writing for Inside Lacrosse, only because I get those LinkedIn congratulations. I thought, what's everybody congratulating me about? And those automatic things come out. So this is a picture of my brothers, and most lacrosse fans know that Brendan, former hockey player, Stanley Cup champion, is my younger brother, 8 years younger, and these are the other guys. Danny, this is Danny, me, Sean, and Brendan. And what a lot of people don't know though is Brendan was a fantastic lacrosse player. He played till he was about 15. He played a little bit of junior B when he was 15. I think his last year of midget, he left Mimico and played in Mississauga with John Tavares, and it was a pretty stacked Mississauga team, and they were one of the top teams in Canada. But he was also a top player, and he really was on par with John Tavares. They were peers. Tavares was a year older than Brendan, so they would play against each other every second year, but they were always among the top scorers in the league back then. And so, those two guys go back a long way. So a lot of people like to say, oh, Brian's the lacrosse player, Brendan was the hockey player, but in truth, Brendan was a much better lacrosse player than me as well. He just picked the sport that paid a little more.
A little.
Yeah.
You've got to talk about this photo with the two cups.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's a funny story because so we won between our Brampton team and Six Nations. We won 5 Man Cups in a row, and we always seemed to have the Man Cup. Like there was times where I had probably had it home for months, and it didn't seem like a big deal. Anytime you wanted a photo opportunity, no problem. But anyhow, Brennan, I think was 96. I can't remember 96 when he won his first Stanley Cup, and we found out he was getting the Stanley Cup that July. So I phoned Six Nations. I said, "Can I get the Man Cup back? Because I want to get a photo." And they said, they said we gave it to the OLA. So I called the OLA. I said, "Can I get the Man Cup back for a photo?" And they said, "Oh, we gave it to the CLA." And I called the CLA, and they said it's actually on a train going out west now. And I told them what I wanted to do, and honestly, I hate to say it, but there were no help. Um, but a couple days later, I'm playing in Brampton Arena, and the janitor grabs a hold of me, says, "There's a phone call for you," and like he brings me into the janitor's room, and it's Neil Dodridge, who had played on those 5 Man Cups, and this year he was playing out in Victoria, and he goes, "Shanny, I heard you want the Man Cup." I go, "Yeah," and he goes, it'll be there tomorrow." And he was working for FedEx or Pure Later, one of those companies at the time.
Right.
And I said, I don't even want to ask how you're getting it, but anyhow, the next day the Man Cup arrived, and we got our photo op with the Man Cup and the Stanley Cup. So I think it's a great picture. I don't know if there's ever been a picture like this, before or since, with the Man Cup and Stanley Cup together with two brothers. But that's my mother's backyard, and it was kind of funny because it was Brendan's big party, and then I pull out my little trophy. It was funny too because some of my cousins who know nothing about lacrosse started lining up to take pictures with me, and I go, "Why are they doing that? Like they're not lacrosse fans." And I could hear one of my aunts say, "Go take a picture of Brian and his little trophy too."
We've had confirmation it was 1996.
96 it
So
was.
yeah, so the third
Okay.
straight Man Cup for Six Nations, and as you mentioned, there was 2 before that with Brampton when you were
Yeah.
there.
So let's go. And these are my kids. My kids are all into sports as well. Seamus, Devlin, and Brenna. Uh, Seamus, he won a Kufla Cup for Guelph, or a couple of them actually, and played Alls Lacrosse in Mimico. Devlin is a goaltender in lacrosse, and he's a pretty good hockey player as well. And he's right now he's a backup, well, the number 3 goalie for the Buffalo Bandits. He's been there for a couple of years. My daughter Brenna is finishing. Well, she's getting an extra year at University of Louisville, an NCAA scholarship. But she also played for Team Canada, the U19 championship team in 2015, and won a world championship when they beat the U.S. in a great bit of an upset 10-9 win in Edinburgh. But that was lots of fun, and I was there. So that's my 3 kids are very much into lacrosse and sports as well.
How hard was the decision for Brennan to go back? for the extra year in Louisville?
It's funny because I thought it would be a tougher decision than it was, and I think just I guess you got to give some credit to her coach Scott Teeter, who's also involved in the summit,
Yeah.
and he's a great guy, great coach. He coached the Team Canada as well. He coached her at Canisius before he took a job at Louisville, and her and one of her best friends transferred to Louisville. So I think a lot of it's the relationship with Scott Teeter, who's a great coach
Hmm.
and very he's very good with the girls. He's actually a Canadian. I'm sure I mentioned he's a Canadian. He's from Shelburne, Ontario. So he understands the Canadian girls as well as the American girls, and yeah, he talked her into it. And I don't think it was that difficult. I kind of thought it would be. I was actually surprised because she had an extra year because she redshirted one year when she got hurt. So she actually graduated 2 years ago. Last year she got a master's in sports administration, and now I'm not even sure what she's going to take when she goes back to school this year. But I think she is looking forward to it, and pretty sure it's a done deal that she's going back.
Interesting. I mean, I find for to me that if you have a chance to go and get a master's degree through your scholarship and play another year, makes perfect sense to me. I was surprised. Like I'm a little surprised to hear she's already got her master's and she's still going back. But I mean, hey, obviously the experience is pretty great.
Yeah,
For a lot of these kids.
and you're right. Anytime you're being offered, free education,
Mhm.
it's a good thing. And it's not. It would have maybe been different if she had a big job lined up, here. But there's
Right.
nothing lined up yet. So, but I'm excited because I didn't like the way it ended. And, she didn't like, midway through the season, and the plug was pulled, and we all understand why. So they'll get another chance. Hopefully everything goes well, in the next future months.
And
And
I
this,
mean, I was
sorry,
just going to say,
go ahead.
Seamus on the left, the runner playing in
Yeah.
the Arena League this year, is also the stats guy
Oh
at
yes,
Rock Games.
he's our stats guy at the Rock Games.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
Always handing notes. I find it kind of funny because he'll write a little note on a sticky post-it note and hand it to you, and you'd hand it over to me, and I'd be like, "Okay, here we go." So it was a fun little chain of command.
All very much involved, and
Yeah.
there's my little fan club. This is my wife Carol and Brenna when she was a little bit younger. My only two fans. And my other family is Mimico Lacrosse, and I've been involved in Mimico Lacrosse since I was 12 years old, and in fact, I've been coaching in Mimico Lacrosse since I was about 18. So that's over 40 years now. I'm not a coach there now. I'm more of a parent, but I help out now and again. This was actually last summer helping out with the Peanuts. I believe they got a great little program where the peanut lacrosse players don't pay anything,
Mhm.
and it's great to see. And I see a lot more organizations in Ontario have started doing the same thing.
That's such a big part of it, right? We've talked about this in some other chats about the importance of building. Kurt Malosky was talking about the importance of building the minor programs, and it's so critical. One thing Mouse was emphasizing was there's so much focus on the elite, on
Yeah,
the
you're
top
right.
part of the pyramid, right? You have to have all the layers of the pyramid, and I'm not going to call them the bottom layer. I mean, they're the layers at the bottom of the pyramid, but they're the broad, wide supporting layers of the pyramid. And this Peanuts program, I remember seeing it. Is it fairly recent that it's been free? It seems I just heard about it in the last few years.
Yeah, I think it's only the last few years they started making it free, and I'll mention that the Mimico Lacrosse Twitter site, they're constantly putting things out, and I saw a bar chart that they put out recently showing how registration has grown, not just in the peanut years, but it's like you said, it's like the pyramid thing. So
Mm-hmm.
in all ages above, it has a trickle effect that registration has grown, and I totally agree with you, about focusing on the grassroots, and I think I learned that ages ago, and I think Mimico realizes that as well. That if you don't have that house league, that with all these new families playing lacrosse, it'll hurt your elite. The elite is great when they win. It's fun,
Mm-hmm.
to win A championships and all that. But even this group in Mimico, who've many of them have recently graduated from junior A, and a lot of them are playing the NLL now. I remember those guys when they were all like paperweight type house leaguers, and many of them didn't come from lacrosse families. They were just kids in Mimico who played hockey at Mimico Arena and then joined lacrosse. And the families knew nothing about it, but there was a big, strong house league, and these kids all, I think when you build your house league, it eventually builds the rep because you start getting kids that say, "Hey, we want more than just
Mhm.
house league," and so you have to focus on the house league. If you want an elite program, you have to focus on the house league.
Yeah, there's another great program that's started in the last couple of years by the OLA called Tri Lacrosse, in which they've worked at, the big thing was getting the insurance to make sure everything was covered. But they have, kids can come in and they have anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 sessions. And I know Nepean's been big, Orangeville, um, uh, Niagara area down. There have been a whole there've been a whole bunch of areas that are really doing, and it's a free program. You come in, they just open up. I remember Mr. Firth from Nepean. I was going
Oh
to say
yeah,
Sam, but that's his son.
Matt,
Um,
Matt
yeah,
Firth.
yeah,
I
yeah.
played with him back in the day.
He
Yeah.
was saying when they got ready, they're preparing everything. They had all the gear. They had the sticks and everything in the gym that they were going to hold it in, and they're all inside preparing. And they said then they just go to open the door, and they're like, "Is anybody going to come in?" We have no idea. They had no idea if anybody was going to be there, and they had like 130 kids come to these Tri Lacrosse sessions, and their retention rate of kids signing up from that into programs was huge. He was saying, "Oh, it was pretty good." It was like, I forget what he said, like 40 or 50% of the kids were
Oh, that's
signing up for
fantastic.
programs. Like, if you get more than 10% of them
Oh
of
yeah.
that program, that's great, So
And
it,
and
it
and
totally feeds it.
yeah, and they know going, and even Mimico with the free peanuts, they know that some of them will try it and maybe not like it. But if
Hmm.
if you get a decent percentage that like it, that's fantastic. Because how many times, yeah, lots of times you have superstar lacrosse players whose parents were superstars too, but quite often you get the superstar whose parent had never picked up a lacrosse stick, and
Yeah.
we've got to be going after those kids too that have no history and know nothing about lacrosse. We got to bring it to them.
Yeah.
So here's a little bit more, the history of Mimico lacrosse. Shockingly, in 1942, I think, yeah, that's a 42 team. Mimico and Brampton combined. So that was they actually called them Mimico Brampton Combines. You'll never see that again. I think both teams have put it in their constitutions. Mimico and Brampton are not allowed to like each other anymore. and Minto Cup champions as well a few times there too.
And for anyone who's not familiar, Mimico and Brampton are not far apart, have a pretty long, how far is it to get from Mimico to Brampton?
20 minutes, half an hour. Yeah.
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 So established rivalry. My brother and his family live in Brampton, and I've spent
And
a bit
I
of time.
believe Brampton was established around the same time. I can't tell you the
Mhm.
exact year, but it's sometime around 1890 as well. So yeah, they've both been around for a long time. And you know what? They have a healthy rivalry. We like to
Mhm.
pretend we really hate each other, but I think it's a respectful rivalry all the same. Even though we love beating each other. Let's see, what do we got here? Okay, yeah. So the down years in Mimico. So in 70, so as you see on the picture on the left, Mimico used to be an outdoor box, and they called it the Drummond Street Bowl. And a lot of history there, and you can see the train behind it. It's right near the train tracks, and um, that was closed down in '74 to build the arena that I'm standing in front of right now, the indoor rink, and that really hurt lacrosse in Mimico for a while because they relocated in the Kingsway area, farther away, so you had to take the bus. It sort of took away the community feel for a while. And I thought a lot of kids didn't come back, or I'm sure registration went down a ton. And I think throughout Ontario, those weren't good years as well. And in '78, their junior A team couldn't make it to a game, and they were just disqualified from the whole league, kicked right out of the league. Apparently, if you hear the backstory, there was an agreement between them and I believe it was Windsor. So they didn't want to drive 5 hours with not enough guys to play, and they called Windsor, said we can't make it, and they were kicked out of the league. And there was no junior lacrosse in Mimico for, I guess that's another
15
25
years.
year or 50. Do your math, yeah,
Yeah.
15 years, yeah.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, and then '80s minor lacrosse registration dropped down quite a bit, and it wasn't just Mimico. I'm, those were some lean years in Ontario, and probably throughout Canada, but definitely Mimico felt it at the time. But the 90s were a different story. And in Mimico, we did focus on the grassroots, the house leagues. And we started, finding all the reasons. I was involved in it quite a bit. And I remember I used to go to the hockey rinks and set up video cam or video machines. And, that was around the time in the 80s. In the late 80s was when my brother Brennan started playing the NHL. So did Newendike. And the OLA and Mimico, we sort of we tried to hit the hockey community by saying, look at these great hockey players. They all played lacrosse in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So the OLA had a promotion with posters of, Newendike and Brennan and Gary Roberts. And at the time, they even created a video with a bunch of hockey players talking about how great lacrosse was. And I used to set up the TV and the VCR outside the hockey dressing rooms and play that video over and over. And what we did back then is we took away a lot of the reasons to not play lacrosse. A lot of people said, oh, we go to the cottage in the summer. Well, we said, well, it's a spring league. We end when school's out, we end. The house league's just a 10 weeks, no travel, same day every week. And we try to take every excuse away. It was practically free to play. I think they might have paid $25 or so to play. And, and we really recruited hard. And the house league, what we found out is after a couple of years of developing this house league, a lot of the families who were originally said they didn't want to travel, didn't want to play rep, would say, well, how come there's only one rep team in Pee Wee? How come we don't have two teams? And it started growing. Like the same people that you had to twist their arms to get them to play at all were complaining that, we should have two rep teams. We should have three rep teams. And it started growing. 93, we entered the junior B team. And as you know, 99, when the Toronto Rock came on board, everything blew up because they really caught the public's imagination, not just lacrosse fans, but just sports fans. And, I'm sure you remember they sold out Maple Leaf Gardens. They had, all the home games were on TV. They got pretty decent ratings on TV. They got great crowds. And at that point, people were just banging on the door, not necessarily in 1999, but the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
We had in Mimico, we'd have like a coach come in and say with 15 names and say, I'm registering my hockey team. I want all of them playing lacrosse, and here's the list. And I'm sure that was going on throughout Ontario, and even the OLA now, I think they call it like the Toronto Rock years. There was a real boom in lacrosse throughout Ontario and Canada, not just Ontario, because if you remember, at the time, the Toronto Rock was the only Canadian team in the NLL, and they were on Sportsnet across Canada. So it really helped everywhere in Canada, helped with the grassroots lacrosse.
Did you find a lot when you were doing that? Because you were doing Rock games right from that point, right? Right from when they came in.
Yeah.
So did you find when you'd go and recruit, like you said, you went to the hockey venues and things, and were people recognizing you because they'd been watching the Rock games and making that connection?
Not so much that, but what I did find is, I never had to explain what lacrosse was anymore. Like when I was younger and working with Mimico, and you'd go to the rinks and lacrosse, what's that? You had to explain the game. What I found, in the early Rock years was you said lacrosse and everyone said, oh yeah, I know lacrosse. I've seen lacrosse, I've seen the Rock. So it was quite easy that way. So you no longer had to explain the game. And, the Rock did a great job of reaching, Ontario lacrosse families, to buy season tickets and all that. But their success was not based on lacrosse fans. It was based on capturing the interest of sports fans and hockey fans. And a lot of that credit should go to Joe Bowen and Bill Waters, because Bill Waters was the assistant, or I think it was the GM or assistant GM of the Leafs at the time. So he hired Joe Bowen to do play-by-play for the Rock. He was also doing it for the Leafs. So there was a lot of cross promotion, and I don't know how many times I'd be watching a hockey game and a fight would break out or something, and Joe would say something. Oh, you think this is rough? What do you see the lacrosse? And he was constantly promoting it, and it was funny too because he used to always say to me in the first couple of years, when there'd be a scrum and everything but punches thrown, and then the referees would break it up and no one would go to the penalty box, and Joe Bowen would always say, he goes, if there's a rule book in this league, I'm sure it's only one page, right? He goes, because it seems like everything is legal. So let me go to the next page here. Yeah, and then it's funny because I started lacrosse camp in 2003, and I remember actually it was Joe Bowen that was talking. We talk about all these hockey camps, and we said there's no lacrosse camps. He goes, well, why wouldn't you do a lacrosse camp? It's crazy not to do it. So we started it. It was primarily a Mimico thing, although I can see a couple of Mississauga jerseys in there. You had the odd Mississauga thing, but yeah. So we ran a camp uh, in Mimico for 10 years. I ran a lacrosse camp, and we had great crowds. And this was long before. I mean, there's so many camps and things going on now, and they all do a great job. And the Hill Academy didn't exist back then, and but it was a lot of fun, and it probably was like 90% Mimico kids, and the kids that went when they were young, when they were older, they became volunteers, and we had a lot of fun with it. And that's Bobby Allen in the middle there, beside me, and
Yeah.
that's Ladouceur,
Dan.
Dan Ladouceur beside him. So yeah, lacrosse. It's funny because you know 10 years before that, if somebody said we're going to run a lacrosse camp, that's like, are you nuts? And now you see there's lacrosse camps everywhere, and it was a lot of fun. I someday I'm going to go through and find out how many of these guys are in the NLL. I bet you I could pick 6 or 7 guys just in this picture alone who are in the NLL. And yeah, and it was a lot of fun, and we did it for 10 years. And 10 years was the right number because now there's enough camps doing other things. 2010 to present, Mimico, they added the women's lacrosse. The In 2013, when they won the A title, that was the first A championship in Mimico since '78. In 2015, their junior B team, well, they returned to the junior A competition. That was also a good year. The midgets and peewees won the A championships. Uh, and just 2 years later, the junior A team went back to the Minto Cup. So that was pretty good. I mean, we didn't have junior A lacrosse in Mimico since 1970, yeah,
78, you
78,
said, right?
78. Yeah, so 78. We came back in 2015, and 2 years later, they were in the Minto Cup. I mean, they didn't win the Minto Cup. Six Nations won it that year, but it was a pretty exciting time. And the minor Mountaineers continue to participate, and they win A championships last year. I can't remember if it was the Bantam, or I think they won the Bantam A championships. So it really seems to be a lot of good players, even in the younger age groups still. And the other good thing is the, the junior A's. You have to have some kind of junior program in your system because I think the kids need something to look up to, and I don't care if it's junior B or junior A. The reason we were junior B from '93, and we had to go junior A because the success of our minor program was actually hurting our junior B team. Because what was happening is our minor program got so good and so competitive that all the best players went elsewhere to play junior A.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from a pretty decent junior B program to a poor junior B program as our minor program got better, because all our best players didn't want to play junior B, and it makes sense. If you're one of the best midget players, you're not going to play junior B. If you want to go to the NLL, you're going to go play junior A in a different center. So year after year, we are losing 2 or 3 of our best players every year. And the only way to get those kids to stay in Mimico was for us to go junior A. And that's what happened. We went junior A, and all these kids that were playing in Orangeville, Beaches, wherever, came back to Mimico and played where they want to play, and they get to play at the highest level.
Yeah, which, if people are wondering how the junior A team became so competitive so quickly to get to a Minto Cup a couple of years in their third year back, it was because those players were allowed to return to the junior A because there was now a junior A program,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they wanted to come and be part of it.
Exactly. I think they were all given the opportunity to that 1 year, that first year, they could come back, and they didn't need any kind of release or anything. And if they chose not to come back that year, then it wasn't a freebie the next time. But yeah, everybody that was able came back, so that was good.
Nice.
Let's see. And this is just a few shots of this one on the left was top left. This was we had a great series against Brampton to go to the Minto Cup. So that year, Six Nations finished first, and Brampton finished second, and Mimico finished third, and in the second round of the playoffs, because the Minto was going to be in Ontario, it was going to be the two finalists. So you knew if you made it to the finals in Ontario, you were going to the Minto Cup. So what it basically boiled down to was between us and Brampton, and we played. I think it was 3 out of 5 at the time. So it was a 5-game series that went the limit, 1 goal victory in the last game, and it was a stacked Brampton team. I mean, they had Jeff Teat, Clark Peterson, Tyson Gibson, and we had a very good team too. But I mean, it was exciting lacrosse. Whether it was in Brampton or Mimico, the arena was packed. That picture on the top left was like moments after we defeated Brampton. I think the score was 13-12, and that's in Brampton Arena. It was Brampton Memorial Arena was jam packed, and I guess that's the side where all the Mimico fans were, and obviously you see a few other shots. The one down on the bottom middle, that's my son Devlin signing an autograph for a little kid. So that's what I mean when I say you got to have the junior A program so the little kids can aspire to something.
And that I know people who talk about that series as being one of the best lacrosse series they've ever seen. The competitiveness, the level of play was just off the charts.
Oh yeah, it was, and pretty much every game was tight. Every game was tense, and it was, in my career as a lacrosse fan, lacrosse player, that was one of my most exciting moments, was being at that final game in Brampton in a jam-packed Memorial Arena. And I won a Mann Cup in Brampton in a jam-packed Memorial Arena back in '92, I believe. But I don't know. I like to say I might have been more excited watching Mimico beat Brampton that game. I think sometimes when you're involved, it's a different feeling. But being a parent and being a fan, it was a lot of fun. So let me jump over, and I love this picture of the little kids running in the net too. So this one, I think I have to pull out my headphone here so you guys can hear it. This is just a short video. This is the last few seconds after, and it was a 1-goal game in Brampton. In fact, they were winning all game, and Tanner Thompson had an unbelievable third period to tie it up, give us the lead. They pulled their goalie and were all over us in the last few seconds. And this is basically the last couple of seconds of this game. Hopefully you can hear it good enough. Oh, sorry, I went back. Let me try that again. Okay. Steve Toll's the coach here. Watch, he goes a little crazy. That's just rubbing it in a little bit to my Brampton friends, but that was in Brampton Memorial after we won that. I love watching that video, and I got to give credit to Colleen Grimes. She has done like an unbelievable job on the Mimico Twitter feed. It's at Mimico Lax, and she is constantly putting things up like this and all kinds of videos, and she does a great job of really spreading the news and making the Mimico community feel proud. But I don't think it's a stretch to say that she probably does a better job than anyone in Canada in the lacrosse community. Like people out west know who Colleen Grimes is because she runs the Mimico feed, and she's very clever. It's not mean spirited. I mean, sometimes
bit of an edge.
We'll rub it in, but it's not mean spirited at all. I think you'd agree with that, right?
Yeah, she definitely has an edge, and we'll take some. She'll chirp a little bit on there, but it's not like nasty stuff. It's all in fun, and she takes it as well as giving it. I mean, she'll establish relationships with other social media folks, and they'll go back and forth, and it's pretty fun.
And speaking of Colleen Grimes and Mimico Lax, I mean, here's a couple of the examples of the things that she's always doing, and tweets are coming out every day about Mimico lacrosse. So I like, this one with Bobby Orr. There was a time where they were going through all these different hockey players. They had one with Gretzky. They had one with my brother, and it was basically talking about not playing hockey year round. So I think that's a good message from Bobby Orr, even though he doesn't mention lacrosse. He's basically just saying you shouldn't be playing hockey year round. This one here with the big M, this was something that was, put out recently with, the kids that can't play lacrosse right now. We don't know if there's going to be a lacrosse season or not, but she's been putting out a lot of stuff, and of course I think that's the same picture we saw earlier with the little kids in Mimico. And I think I just got one more video that she put together, what it means to be a mountaineer. Was the sound all right on that last one, Stamper?
It was okay. The video was jumping a bit, I thought, but
okay.
I know it works because you sent it to me earlier.
And I guess the other thing is, if anybody wants this slideshow or this video later, just they can tweet me or something, and I can send it. It's public. So
and the whole presentation will be archived, so it'll be on
that's great.
the Global Lacrosse Summit site. Everyone can go and maybe when it's not being broadcast live, maybe the video works better.
Yeah, so I'll put this on, and I'll apologize ahead of time if it's jumpy for people. I actually tested it with my wife on her computer, which wasn't a very good computer, and she said it wasn't the best. It looks great on my computer, though, but we'll see. It's just a couple minutes long.
I'm not getting any sound of you. Shani, can you hear me? Sorry, folks. I think Shani had to take his headset out again to play the video, and I'm not sure if he knows that there's no audio, but I think there's not that much left. And then we'll take some questions and.
Stamper, you want me to stop that? Or
yeah, that's okay. Good. Yeah, we didn't have any audio, so.
Okay, so.
But we did have a question from Jason Woolley. He was asking if Mimico has a field team in the summer months, or what's the field program like?
Yeah, they do have a good field program, and generally it's a lot of the same kids that play box lacrosse. Generally, a lot of them also play field lacrosse, but it's the spring season, I believe. But I don't know what's going to happen now, because obviously it's been canceled this year. But so I'm not sure when they're going to do it. Is that Jason Woolley, the hockey player? Did you say his name was Jason Woolley? Jason
Jason
Woolley.
Woolley.
Oh, Jason
Jason,
Woolley.
if you want to respond to that, it's,
As Jason Woolley played hockey. Well, I played hockey with Brennan in the NHL, and I don't know if it's the same Jason Woolley, but yeah, they do have a field program, and they've done pretty well with it too.
he said no, same name but better looking.
Yeah.
So I noticed the Hague twins in the
Yeah.
video, I've called the Ontario Junior Men's Field Lacrosse League Championship a few times, and they were pretty prominent in that.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, they're very good players, and I know the sound wasn't good there. I'll just let it play in the background until it's over.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah, those kids, what they were talking about too is they 1 year, I think it was 2015, Mimico won the Pee Wee A's and Midget A's the same year, and the championships were at the track in Oakville. And the final midget game was against Oakville, and we probably had more fans supporting Mimico in that rink than supporting Oakville. And all the junior A's came down to support the little kids, like the peewees and the midgets, and it really meant a lot to the kids to see the junior A's pounding on the glass, cheering them on, and I think that was a really big moment for Mimico lacrosse.
those are the Hague twins right there.
Yeah, yeah, it's not hard to figure out those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you haven't seen them, if you don't know them, and they're not the biggest guys, very, very talented.
Big hearts though too. Yeah.
Now, interesting. One of them in box lacrosse, they're both runners, but in field, one of them, I can't remember if it's Gareth or.
I always get mixed up too.
One of them plays goalie, right, and the other is a forward. And they both, I believe, went to Cleveland State.
Yes, and he plays net. I believe the way he plays field net, you can tell that he's a runner. That he's quite comfortable to run out of the net whenever he gets a chance.
Yeah, he'll take off a drop of a hat. We have a question from John Fry, based in Halifax, and he's saying they're seeing a Thunderbirds bump in minor lacrosse registration, and he's wondering, with that boom that you saw from the Rock in the early 2000s. How did you struggle with building coaching capacity to sustain the teams? They're saying that is really the big challenge for them right now, is having enough coaches for all the kids who want to play.
That's true, but a lot of hockey coaches were happy to volunteer. So and I think one of the things you got to do is mentor those coaches, because it was funny. So we were good that we did have a lot of especially in house league, volunteered to coach, but many of them didn't know much. Well, most of them didn't know much about lacrosse, and it was funny because sometimes I can remember, going to watch the house league, and a team played two guys on the blue line like a hockey defenseman, and I said, "What are those guys doing?" He goes, "They're my defensemen," and I had to say, "No, that's not how we play lacrosse." So generally, for the most part, though. I think that's what you got to do. You got to go out and get the hockey coaches, get the parents, and a lot of them will push back and say they don't know the game, and you say, well, better than nothing. And this is where your, provincial lacrosse association has, the coaching clinics and all that kind of stuff. And I would say with quite a lot of confidence that a lot of these parents that knew nothing about lacrosse back then know quite a bit about it right now, and many of them, got into coaching and stayed in coaching. So yeah, that's a challenge, but I think it's a very doable, and I mean, that's a great thing for them that they're going to have a big bump, or they're having a big bump in lacrosse.
Right, it's the kind of challenge, kind of problem you want to have, but it is a real one. And obviously, like you said, finding coaches, developing coaches is huge, and giving. You never want to turn a kid away. If you got kids want to come and play, you want to find a way to make it possible.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now, we have a question from Jeremy Bailey from the Ontario Lacrosse Association, and he's thanking you for sharing the story of the Mountaineers with everyone, calling it one of the strongest fan bases from top to bottom in all of the OLA, and that recognizes the value of introducing the game to tomorrow's generation of athletes. He's wondering about no-contact lacrosse for the entry-level divisions when they're first learning to play. He considers himself a lacrosse purist, and he's wondering what value is there to removing body contact from the early divisions like paperweight to encourage new players to learn the game in an environment where it's safe to do so. And he recognizes, and there are divided opinions. I know there are people who say, hey, don't teach kids to play without contact. Same with football. And when they play, non-contact football or hockey. That's a big debate in hockey. Do you take body checking out and then, or are they better to learn how to take and give a hit when they're younger, or are they better to wait until older? The flip side being, hey, if you're starting to hit when you're 15 or 16, you're bigger and can do more damage if you haven't learned how to do it, to give and receive a hit properly.
Yeah, I could see, and thanks, Jeremy, for saying the kind words, but I could see both sides of that argument, but I tend to favor the side where you want to teach them how to give and take a hit when they're young. Now, having said that, I agree. You don't want to see kids getting hurt when they're young, and one of the things I think you have to do if there's hitting in the young ages is, when we did paperweight, the coaches were always allowed on the floor, and you're constantly running around telling the kids what they can and can't do. And we were lucky in Mimico too. We had Danny Atkinson. I don't know if you remember Danny. He was a president of Mimico at one point, but he was also a referee. And when he was reffing, did a great job. If there's a loose ball in the corner, he'd run over and say, "Nothing on the back." And
Nice.
coaches have to do that, and you have to remind them, be first to the ball. The kids should know that they could go in and be first to the ball and they're not getting creamed. But the downside is, if you don't have good coaching and you don't have people out there making sure that kids learn what they can and can't do, I don't want to see anybody getting creamed into the boards, especially like a 4-year-old who's just starting to play the game. So, and that's why I could see the side of the argument would say, well, the kids shouldn't worry about it. But, I'm thinking of my own kids when Seamus and my other kids started playing lacrosse and paperweight, and there was hitting, and they didn't get hurt. They fell down, they got knocked down. But, I think if there's the right coaching, they can learn how to take a hit. And it was rare that I saw kids I don't think I ever saw a kid that was hurt badly, but I can see the other side of the coin too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we had the question about Halifax and developing coaches there and the boom with the young players. And that's a situation where you talked about the coaching. I did it when I've coached lacrosse. I've always been, I am prepared. I think you have to have coaches who aren't going to get mad at the officials or the other team if their player does something. You can't just blindly support your players. You want to support your players.
Especially the young ages in house league. The young ages in house league, and I said in the paperweight in Mimico, we always had the coaches on the floor. They're coaching everybody. They're not just coaching their own team. And I also believe I gave Danny Atkinson as a great example of a referee who was constantly coaching. I told all the refs out there, and lots of time they're young kids. I'd say, you got to tell the kids, tell them before it happens what not to do. I mean, you even hear that in the NLL. When the refs are mic'd up, they're warning them to ease up on
off the back.
Exactly, and I think that's one thing that the referees should be learning to do, especially with the little kids.
And I was mentioning Halifax because I think that's where you have to really think about something like that. If you don't have the base of coaching, if you guys are just learning how to coach the game, great, bring them in. Thank you so much for doing it, but maybe don't put that pressure on them to have that going as well. Maybe take the contact out.
One of the things about lacrosse, though, is it just doesn't seem like lacrosse without contact. It's a hard game. I've never really liked pickup lacrosse or even masters lacrosse, because it sort of feels like it's a one sport that is so different when there's no hitting.
I play in an old timers league, the Borough Boys in Peterborough. And actually, there's some young guys in it too, which is really super annoying because they can run around really fast, and there's nothing we can do. And there are times when guys are running around. You're not supposed to hold the ball for more than 5 seconds, but there are some guys who will run around, and we'll just look at each other and say, just wish we could hit this guy. Because you wouldn't do that for very long. But I mean, that's I think I'm generally pretty strong on the other side of have the contact and have them teach them how to do it. Like you said, give and receive and hit properly. But it's definitely a discussion to have. We do have another question from the better looking Jason Woolley. Asking how American coaches can get quality instruction from Canada online, like this summit. Thank you very much for that. We're really pleased to be bringing you this because U.S. lacrosse is largely ignored box. Now, I think there are some things happening in the U.S. I mean, the collegiate box series, and I know they're trying to do some minor programs, but it's slow. It's slow to get that developed. So, I think somebody will be reaching out to you, Jason. But
Yeah,
Shanny,
yeah, because I think it's Shaden Santos and the guys. What is that? U.S. Box Law? Is it? What's the official name for that? U.S. Box Law, I believe.
there's US Boxer, the USILA. Yeah, I think US
Yeah,
Boxer is the
I think it's
main.
U.S. Box Law has done a great job, and I know Santos really started it, and I know
Shaden
Brown.
Santos. He's out in
Yeah,
California now.
yeah, and I think he started a program there, but it's really expanded across different parts of the U.S. I know it's in Colorado now, and I think Connecticut. And what I like about what's Brown's first name from
Matt Brown.
Matt Brown.
Yeah,
He's involved in it a lot.
in
He's
Denver.
one of the coaches at Denver. And what I like about what they've done is it's really box lacrosse.
Mhm.
It's historically sometimes you'd hear Americans are playing indoor lacrosse, but they were really playing field lacrosse inside. And what Matt Brown and Shaden Sandos and the U.S. Box Law has done is they said, no, this is box lacrosse, and it's box lacrosse rules, and we're teaching how to play, the box lacrosse game. And I think they've done a tremendous job in educating coaches, referees, but of course it takes a while for that to grow and expand. But I think
Yeah.
they've made huge strides in recent years. But
It's
if I
definitely
were
growing.
you,
Yeah.
Jason Woolley, I'd get in touch with those guys, and I'm not sure where you are, but I'm sure I think there might be in Philadelphia as well, but I know it's expanding around the U.S. and they come up in tournaments now. In Canada, quite often they'll send some all-star teams, and I think they do quite well. I even remember 10 years ago or longer when Seamus was a midget, there was like a Shaden Santos brought up a midget team to play a bunch of teams in Ontario, and they definitely weren't embarrassed. I think they did pretty well.
11 players, by the way, from the 2017 Mountaineers Junior A team were drafted to Major Series Lacrosse. So that's good. Over half the regular lineup. That's
good research.
That's pretty
good. And I would bet.
I can't take credit for that. That's Brad messaging me in the chat box.
And I would bet that I should do this sometime. That most of their parents never played lacrosse. Now they many of them grew up in Mimico, the community, so there's a good, strong community feel. But a lot of these kids just got involved in lacrosse, when we really promoted our house league, and they played hockey at Mimico Arena and decided to play lacrosse in the summertime. Did I lose you, Stamper? Well, I'm not sure if I'm on or not. Oh,
you're definitely on.
Stamper's off and I'm on.
Let me just see here. Well, it looks like it's the two of us now, Shanny. Well, thank God I just came back downstairs.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's a good point to end it anyhow.
Yeah. Well, if there's any questions, we can certainly take some more through here. Shanny, thanks for stepping in here and sharing some knowledge with us. Like it's the legacy. I'm small town Ontario guy, Zone 7 coming up myself. So it was I know it was a real big change for myself coming up from Wallaceburg to the Whitby area, and starting to get to know the legacies of the Mimicos of the world, of the Hamilton, some of the places that have been established, and then sharing the stories of places like my hometown in Wallaceburg and our legacies and our communities. So the diversity in the history of the game, I think, is just really, really kind of unique and cool.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about lacrosse too is it really is about community. And I think, to a great extent, hockey has lost that. Hockey's become a lot more mercenary, where I think lacrosse in general now is still about playing for your community. I know that's a big thing in Mimico. And if people out there get a chance to watch that video, a lot of the kids talked about how they play for their community, how it's like family. And I know that's not unique to Mimico. I know it's the same thing in Wallaceburg, Whitby, Orangeville, Peterborough. So and that's one of the things I love about lacrosse, is that most players still feel pride in playing for the community that they grew up in or that they're associated with, and that's one of the great things about our game.
It is. It's actually kind of funny being a major series operator, and you're drafting kids who've got I'll use my Mimico kids as an example. You know, like I scouted these kids, I got to know them quite well, and I never want to take that Mimico um, feeling and legacy out of them and
Yeah.
make them quote unquote Brooklyn guys. I want them to bring that culture into my dressing room and share that so that it becomes even something a little bit bigger, a little bit better. And how can it be enhanced? Because there's such a rich tradition there. And
Yeah.
you know, like, and we've got guys from all over the place, but it is kind of funny when you are talking to guys and you are getting ready to draft them, and then all of a sudden it's you know, you're thinking about how the dressing room dynamics going to work. Not out of each other last year for the, you know, the OLA finals or something.
Well, you know, it's funny, and I wrote about this in the article I wrote about Bobby Allen on IL Indoor recently. Is one of the kids from Mimico who played for McMaster University for Eddie Como, and Bobby Allen told me the story about this kid, and I said, "What was his name?" He goes, "I don't know. Everybody just called him Mimico," and he loved it. And I thought, you know, that's great. And even, you know, I spoke to Eddie Como about it, the same thing, and it was actually Kevin McCrory was his name, but it didn't matter because he was known as Mimico, and Eddie Como said, and a few years before him, there was another guy who was the original Mimico. So, you know, I think it's great that these guys carry that name with pride. And I know it's not just a Mimico thing. It is a Mimico thing, but I know it's an Orangeville thing and a Whitby thing and a Wallsburg thing and a Peterborough thing as well.
Yeah. And like I said, I think that stuff should be celebrated more.
Oh yeah.
Shared more. There's it's been great to see the rise. I mean, I've been around lacrosse all my life, and it's been great to see the rise of Mimico lacrosse. From I mean, I played against the junior B team. You know, I played against the Andy Dudens of the world. I've been in that arena when there's 400 or 500 people that just don't like you because you're wearing. But it's nice to see. I was at those games at the track when those guys, you know, won their championships, and I've had guys play Team Ontario for me. So. And I think we celebrate it more often, and we end up being better for it as a lacrosse community, regardless of where we're at, because I take a lot of this stuff and I try and translate that to my Israel lacrosse program.
Oh yeah.
You know, and we try and instill in that. I think we've got a fairly strong culture there, but I can tell you right now that some of what we do is borrowed and redeployed from the Mimicos of the world, from, you know, from the Wallsburgs of the world, from experiences that I've had. So I think a lot of organizations could, you know, there's plenty of takeaways from this. It's been a great hour.
Well, thanks very much, guys. I've enjoyed it. And before I go, I want to give one more plug for Colleen Grimes, who actually helped me with my Google slideshow. But, you know, and she does the Mimico Lax. So if you're not following it, give it a follow. And it's just Mimico Lax. And there's lots of good content up there.
I think it was my computer. My internet. I'm here. I came back. I saw Shani freeze. I was like, oh no.
I just always assume it's me.
And then all of a sudden, boom! I was gone. It was trying to reconnect, so I had to go back in. But we do want to thank our sponsors, of course: Major Series Lacrosse, Uncommon Fit, Manitoba Lacrosse, the PAR Team, Bear Paw Lacrosse Events, Apex Lacrosse Events, and Sticks and Picks podcast. In about an hour, we've got Dylan Ward coming up talking about the transferal from field to box in terms of goaltending. And yeah, Shani, thanks so much for being with us, and Brad, thanks for jumping in when when my rural internet came in on me.
Yeah, thanks very much, both of you guys. And yeah, this is a great thing you're doing, Brad. I think it's a great thing. I look forward to watching some more of the presentations.
Awesome. All right.
Okay, guys.
Thanks, everyone.